We're excited to announce our very first sponsor of the Dad Task Force, which is StreamKits.com, where you go and get high-end audio-visual production equipment that's affordable and easy to use. If you're a streamer or content creator, this is for you. You can go to Amazon, you can buy that camera, you can buy all those cables and the microphones and the stands and the tripods and the lights and the software. But you know what happens when you put all that together and it doesn't sync up real well and your file gets corrupted? You gotta refilm it. But with StreamKits, it all sets up and syncs together and you can go live right from your device, or you can just record it static and go take care of it in post. The choice is yours because it's integrated into itself. And with promo code TaskForce35, you get 35% off MSRP at checkout. If you want to create a cooking show, StreamKits for you. If you want to show people how to fix cars in your garage, StreamKits for you. It is so simple to get started, to get your vision, your goal, your dream, everything out there and going right now. You don't have to break the bank. And at the end of the day, when it's all said and done, you've saved so much money with StreamKits and the Dad Task Force promo code of TaskForce35. You can reinvest that money that you saved into your dream, into your goal, into your company, into your brand. StreamKits.com with promo code TaskForce35. Do you force your kids to hug other adults?
No, that's actually something I had never thought about. And then came up in like a family situation where I was like, I didn't think anything of it. And my wife was like, no, you don't have to hug such and such. Like, it's okay. And so, no, we don't. Do you?
No. I don't think that there's a benefit to that. Why is my kid hugging you got to make you feel good?
Right. It's more for the adult than the kid. So.
And I take that out of the context of a family visit or visit to a friend's house, and you put it into the context of hotel, motel, or the mall. It's weird, right?
Yeah, 100%.
So in today's episode, unbeknownst to Davon, I want to talk about how to establish boundaries and inner circles and getting these pieces, like, how as a father can you implement safeguards around your children in a way that's going to keep them safe?
Yeah, I think that's a great topic for today's episode.
So the backup, when, and this is my opinion. I'm not a doctor or a psychologist. It's my opinion. If I make my kids go and hug everybody or touch people, like, and I say touch people, like whatever it is, like if you're meeting somebody, a handshake is plenty. And then so let me back this up. There's a study of a subject called proxemics. Proxemics is the study of space around us.
Okay.
There are natural distances that are like public comfort, social comfort, personal comfort, and intimate comfort. And it should be your child's choice, in my opinion, that they choose who they let into that circle. It's and as I tell my son all the time, because his love language is personal touch, like physical touch. He likes to cuddle mom, and or anybody that'll cuddle him. Like he's just like likes to cuddle. So on that component, what I want to be clear is that that's fine that you feel that way, that you need that, but you can't force that onto somebody else.
Right.
The expectation isn't you have to wrap your arms around me or you have to hold me. Like that's the idea of mutual.
Yeah.
agreeance. So we both have daughters and sons.
Mm-hmm.
Where, how do you have that conversation? Like how, when aunt or uncle shows up and they're like, come here. And your kid's like, I don't know you.
Right. I think there's a few components to it. One is talking to your kid before the situation becomes anything.
Yeah.
And just letting them know like there's a line between like what you have to do to be polite and have manners and I guess where your comfort in like your space comes into play too. Like, hey, such and such is going to come over. Like if they ask for a hug, like you don't have to give them a hug, but you've got to say hi. You've got to like ask how they've been. Like you can't ignore them. But by all means, like you don't have to give them a hug if you don't want to give them a hug or like you don't feel comfortable giving them a hug, because as like comfortable as I am with that person, like it's my sister or my brother or my aunt, my uncle, like to my kid, that could still feel like a stranger.
Sure.
And so like you got to understand that part of it too. I think when you're explaining it to them and walk them through that, like this is a safe person coming into our house. But again, like you don't have to, like if you don't feel compelled to hug this person, you don't have to. But if you want to hug them, like go ahead.
So. You mentioned in the last episode about inner circles, and I think that has more to do with, I think you meant more about influence. But, you know, how are you having conversations about nefarious intent within people that you wouldn't expect it from? And let me preface this. Alarmingly high numbers of inappropriate touch come from people in the education system, people in the religious systems, and other trusted positions over children, daycare workers, things like that. Not to say that everybody that works in those things are perverts or pedophiles, but we want to make sure that our kids are equipped with recognizing signs of danger and not feeling compelled to just automatically trust somebody because they're in a position.
Right. And yeah, interestingly, like the statistics show like that's where a majority of like inappropriate touch does come from, is like people who are in situations where like the kids should trust them.
Yeah. Scout leaders.
Yeah, exactly.
Things like that.
I don't know if this is like the best way. This is the way that we handle it. Is like having that conversation that like if mom and dad aren't around, like you shouldn't be in like no adult should be having you get in their space, even if it's like a relative sometimes. We haven't gone as far to like tell them the why behind it, but just making sure that like they understand there's like a distance that should be respected if mom and dad aren't around. If like that space is ever violated or anything, like cause a scene.
Yeah, that's fair. When we first moved into this neighborhood, there was, I don't know, 57,000 kids constantly. And most of them felt pretty comfortable just walking into houses.
Right.
And I heard a little knock on the door one morning or one afternoon. And I went and opened the door, and our neighbor down the street, it was his, like, I don't know, I think she's probably 4. Mm-hmm. She like runs in the house. I'm like, nope. I yelled for Garrett to come here, go get her.
Right.
So it's like we just have to be, we don't want to make things weird because, you know, kids need certain affirmations, right. But we also want to set clear boundaries about appropriateness of touch, right, and who we can trust, and how we communicate our distrust for those around us. Do you have any experiences, personal or professional, where you've had to have those hard conversations?
On which side are you talking about? Like
Either.
Luckily, like not with any adults. There's tons of training out there now, which is great. And every organization I've been a part of like makes all the adults go through that training. So like, thank goodness I've never had to be in a situation where like a coach was with somebody behind closed doors or like anything like that. With kids, luckily, I've never had to have that conversation. I've heard of situations coming up, and had to talk to my kids about how that situation could have been avoided.
Yeah.
But what about you?
So kind of both, definitely with the adults. It's funny though, you've done a good job with your kids, and I think because we're on the same page, they recognize that we're on the same page. So they'll come and knock on the door, and if there's like nobody here, I'm like, I open the door, I'm like, hey, there's nobody here, and they're like, they take slow steps back, and it's like, I'll let them know you came by.
Yeah,
So it's
like, oh,
okay. It's, yeah, but no, we actually have had I've had to have conversations with people about like, look, I'm not saying you did anything wrong. What I'm saying is this is the things that were observed, and a reasonable person observing these things might be led to this conclusion.
Right.
So how about we do something different?
Right.
It's hard. And then with your kids, you're like, hey, look, look, these are the things you look for.
Right.
Anytime somebody tries to be your friend, but not your friend with your parents.
Right. They're trying to be like your friend.
They're trying to be your friend. And it's not the same, like, Johnny down the street wants to be your friend, but maybe Johnny's dad down the street is trying to be your friend, or Johnny's mom down the street is trying to be that's red
really
flag.
weird. Yeah.
And then inquiries into emotional state, like it would be clear, oh, you seem sad about something, and so now you're trying to invest, that same person is trying to invest emotional
like they're trying to become an emotional safe space for
yes, because that builds that trust and rapport. And then like the big one, or the next big step is like, well, I would never do that. That's your parents. That's your
now they're trying to put
family. Not exactly. So they're trying to create division. So you divide, you distract, and you attack that blind side. And it happens all the time. It happens with in every industry that you see, and it's trusted adults doing untrustworthy things. Trusted adults doing untrustworthy things. And as a dad, because that's the focus of this conversation, you have to equip your kids to recognize signs and dangers associated with nefarious actions of others.
Of course.
And it's difficult because, I've got 2 teenage girls and a soon to be teenage boy, and you're on the lower end of that, but you've got 2 and 2. So like you get to run through everything twice.
Right.
How does your wife feel about all this?
Oh, my wife is like of the school of, well, when you're going through all these trainings on the adult side, like if you want to be a teacher, you want to be a coach, you want to be in any position where like you could potentially be around children. A lot of the coaching and training is around like, if there's any way this can be perceived as like inappropriate, just don't do it. So my wife is like the other end of that. She's like, if there's any way that I can perceive this as inappropriate, like it better not even be a possibility.
Yeah.
which is awesome. Like,
Yeah, for sure.
I know we're going to talk about sleepovers in a little bit, but like our kids don't sleep at other people's houses.
Yeah.
Just because like something could happen. And there's tons of like people who are now adults that came out and say like, oh, these like inappropriate things happened at a sleepover. I've never told anything about it.
Yeah.
Or anyone about it.
And like, we're not trying to instill our values into anybody that's listening, but we do want you to have the ability to like have a different perspective, a different mindset so that you can make an educated decision for what's best for you and yours. Sleepovers are usually done at a place that's trusted. You trust the people there. Now it's so much different now. Like, right. I remember like half the summer growing up, we'd always stay over at somebody else's house or vice versa. And nowadays it's like, no, no, it's not happening. Not even going to consider it. And maybe it's because we have more information. Maybe it's because we see the world through a different lens, but it's pretty common, I think, the whole sleepover thing's
yeah.
Now oddly enough, we let our kids, if other families want to have a sleepover, we're like, well, you can do it here.
Right. Yeah. We're the same way.
But we're not going there. And it's no knock on that family, and not saying that you're perverts or anything. It's just that's our line in the sand.
It's just it's a rule. It's not just a rule for y'all. It's a rule for
everybody.
For everybody. Yeah.
And we try to stay hard and fast with that, and because it makes it easy. You know how many times that they ask for that when they already know the answer?
Yeah.
0.
Right.
You can't be a victim if you're not there. That's kind of the attitude.
Exactly.
Do you have your inner circles? What are your like layers to that inner circle for influence?
Yeah, so my inner circle, I guess you could call it layers. I've got like people who are not, I don't want to say allowed at my house, but that I would like invite over whenever, you know. There's other people who like I might invite at certain times, but like other times would be really weird. Like depending on the level of like not necessarily things we have in common, but like I guess for lack of a better term, like things we have in common. But doesn't mean like they don't provide value in my life. Like great mentors, stuff like that. Just not somebody I'd want to like hang out with all the time, or like that'd be weird one-on-one. I don't know if it'd be weird one-on-one.
Yeah.
And then there's like my widest inner circle, which are people who are just like easy to be around, but also like trustworthy, like all levels of that. Like, especially when it comes to kids, like I'm never like, oh my God, where's my kid? Like my kid's got to be in sight. Everybody in my inner circle has got to have like that base layer of like trust.
Yeah.
And then like, I've got to know your level of integrity.
So. Now, I think that might be interesting to perspective on this. So you're basically like, what does this have to do with being a dad? This is what it has to do with being a dad. What you just said, everybody that's going to be around your children needs to have a same basic level of trust so that you're not like, where's my kid? Oh, are they, whatever.
Right.
As a dad, it's your responsibility to only allow those around your kids that are safe to be around your kids. Like if my cousin's a drug dealer, I'm probably not going to let them hang out with the kids or babysit, just because that lifestyle isn't conducive to what I want my kids growing up with.
Right.
If, my longtime Army buddy, who I love because we grew up together, we went to faraway lands together, but they're an outlaw motorcycle gang.
Right.
It's like, cool. Well, I like seeing you for dinner,
Right.
but I don't want you bringing your dirty laundry into my house and around my kids.
Right. There's like a level of like unpredictability that comes with
Yeah.
that person.
And for children, stability is huge. And so bringing that unpredictability in disrupts stability.
Right.
Have you ever had to reject somebody?
Ooh, this is gonna make me sound like a terrible person. I've ignored somebody that like requested to come over, and I like didn't have like the mental capacity in the moment to like come up with a nice way of letting them down.
Okay.
So I just let the moment pass, and then I was like, sorry, couldn't didn't get to your message in time. That did spark like my thinking on how to respond to that person in the future.
Sure.
And so, yeah, luckily I haven't had to do it yet. I should have done it that time. What about you?
The answer to that question is yes. The details of that I would really prefer not to get into, but it's pretty cold and direct.
Yeah,
and that was that.
I think sometimes people need that though. Like,
yeah,
it could take that outlaw person. It could be like their triggering event to like change.
Yeah.
So
I mean, look, you do what you got to do. You're a grown adult in a free country.
Yeah.
But under that same tenet, I get to be a grown adult in a free country and make the same decisions and do what I want to do. So
of course.
And as it relates to me and mine, they're gonna follow suit no matter how fun you seem.
Right. Here's an interesting thing to think about when it comes to like circles, inner circle environments. I don't know. Part of the reason we moved to Idaho from California was that like when I was growing up in California, like you could play outside.
Yeah.
And like your parents might not see you from like the time you left the house this morning until like the sun went down. And that just wasn't the case anymore.
Sure.
I do feel like that is the case here. Like my kids can be out in the neighborhood, they can be here, they can be wherever. There are certain places my kids are not allowed to go.
Sure.
In the neighborhood. How do you go about like drawing the line? Like you can be outside, you can be doing whatever you want, but you can't go here.
So, number one, my kids aren't allowed to go in anybody else's house without talking to me before crossing that threshold.
Right.
And this is even your house. Like it's not you. It's just like
you got to know where your kids.
I got to know where they are.
Right.
Two, what if there's a problematic child playing in the neighborhood, and you're like, look, as long as you're not one-on-one,
right,
and there's other people around, you'll tend to be in a better situation because you don't want it to become a he said, she said, or he said, he said, or they said, you said, and we will. But if those numbers drop and it becomes more of a one-on-one, then you should come inside.
Right.
It sucks, but we've had instances where our youngest is getting thrown to the ground or hit in the head or whatever. And then when confronted, it's like, that didn't happen. So now it's a he said, and you're like, well,
we're just going to avoid that.
We're going to avoid that. So you can't be a victim if you're not there.
Right.
If there's other people around, you don't have to really worry about it. But if it's just you and them, then you know where the front door is.
Right.
So it's just that. And I honestly, like, look, if you're a dad and you've got a kid that people tell you is a jerk, there's a chance that your kid is a jerk.
Yeah.
If nobody has ever said that, and then all of a sudden somebody says, your kid's a jerk, It could very well be that they are the jerk, not your kid. But it's a consistency thing.
Right. If your kid's always in the middle of if like there's drama all around and the common denominator is your kid.
Then take an objective approach, because you're not doing your kid any favors by hiding them in the closet and just like wrapping warm blankets around them. You're not equipping them to go out and handle conflict in real life in a way that actually resolves conflict. They're going to go into the workforce or in high school and then just have the brakes beaten out of them, or they're not going to get a job or have stability in employment because they can't handle working with and dealing with other people unless you're sitting right there next to them holding on to their belt loop to make sure that they're okay.
Right.
Not to circle back to what we talked about at the very beginning of this, is moms and dads, your job is to love and equip your child to go be productive members of society, not love and nurture and your child to the point of codependency.
Right.
So that's my soapbox for the day. Got a few more minutes. What else you got going on?
Yeah, nothing. We're about to get back into the gauntlet of softball here pretty soon.
Yeah.
So
for sure. It's just if you've made it this far, then thank you. We recorded 2 in a row because when we should have recorded this episode, I'll be in Dallas for work. So that's why we're wearing the same clothes. It's not
we do shower and change
once in a while.
Every now and then.
Tell everybody, moms, what I'm seeing is a common occurrence that when you have a good woman or a good partner holding you accountable, you tend to be a better father.
Yeah. And that's like the closest circle of the inner circle.
Yep.
Is who you choose to be there in that spot.
Yeah, for sure. 100%. And so having those people in your life, like they hold you accountable and keep you better, makes you better. There's the idea of iron sharpening iron. That can only happen if one of those 2 pieces of metal is harder than the other. Otherwise, you just sit there and dole each other out and you become useless, which is kind of what we're seeing.
Right.
It's a bunch of uselessness.
Blind leading the blind.
Yeah. So take criticism, learn from your mistakes, learn from our mistakes, get out there, play catch with your kid, or invest into whatever they like to do. Spend time with them. That's what's most important. Tell them you love them, and then, we'll see you next time.
Yep. See y'all next time.
All righty.